This is Franchise Today, brought to you by FRM Solutions, providers of the best-in-class software solutions for franchise relationship management. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast.
Today is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. I'm Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. Well, I celebrate my birthday today by giving you a gift. My interview today is with the one and only Steve White, President and Chief Operating Officer of PuroClean, IFA luminary on the Educational Foundation, VetFran, and the Board of Directors, and somebody that if you haven't had the privilege of meeting till now, buckle up. This is going to be a terrific conversation, and it does run long, so I'm going to run short. Just a couple of quick reminders to visit us at franchisetodaypodcast.com, where you can make guest suggestions, leave reviews, drop me a note, or stream and download episodes that go back 15 plus years, 600 plus episodes there for you. And apologies again to our Apple Podcast subscribers who may have had difficulty downloading last week's Franchise Today episode, as we all know that it's not easy to make a move. Well, we just moved from Blog Talk Radio, where Franchise Today has originated for these so many years, to Spotify, and it came with a little bit of technical hiccups migrating the Apple episodes and making them available for play on Spotify. But it's all cleaned up, all fixed. There should be no further issues or problems. I invite you to let me know, though, should that not be the case. So, because Steve White had so much to share, and I just couldn't figure out where or how or why to cut any of it, this episode runs a little long today, so I'm going to back away, make room for a commercial break, and on the other side of that, I'll return and introduce you to PuroClean President and COO and longtime friend Steve White. Don't go away.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering the only CRM tool built exclusively for franchising that lets you have it your way. Whether you're a single brand needing professional tools across departments or a portfolio of brands needing franchise-specific CRM across the enterprise. Either way, FRM satisfies the needs of many with the power of one. That's right, one single instance of FRM is all it takes across departments or across brands. So if you've had it with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRM, end your frustration today. FRM offers robust dashboarding, tailored reporting, and with open APIs, FRM pushes, pulls, and integrates with other databases, providing you with a single source of truth. Don't just take my word for it. Visit them at frmsolutions.com and order up a demo today. Well, this would be the place where I typically share a little information about my guest, but Steve does such a phenomenal job of doing that for himself, we will forego it and run right into the interview. So, Steve White, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thank you, old friend. It's good to be here and talking to you.
Old friend is right. A pair of old friends, and we were just kind of musing a little in the green room, weren't we, about when it was we met, and it goes all the way back, I think. You thought it was longer ago, but I think 2010, when you were at Signs Now, and I was paying a visit to the offices of Allegra in Detroit on behalf of FranConnect.
I remember it well. You sold me. I implemented FranConnect all across that company and its many brands that year, and we were super dedicated to it. And still use it today at PuroClean.
Hard as I've tried to sell you again, but I got you what you wanted then. Haven't been able to change your mind ever since. Not that I haven't tried once or twice.
I'm always open.
Well, it's really good to have you here today. Steve, we're going to do what I always do. We're going to roll the tape back today, and we're going to take a look at the Wayback Machine, because we know franchising isn't something we find with intentionality. Usually something in our life brings franchising to us. And you, Captain White, I think have a story to share. So why don't you roll out from there? Let's take it away.
Thank you. So I'm born and raised in Marquette, Michigan, which in Michigan's far distant Upper Peninsula, and went to college on an Army scholarship in my hometown at Northern Michigan University. And then on graduation day, in exchange for my wonderful scholarship, I owed the United States Army the next 4 years of my life. I actually served 6 years, and then I got out to start my business career. While I had been gone in the Army, my parents had moved all the way across the state of Michigan, and my dad and my mom were both working at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And so even though there were some big corporate headhunters trying to take me into big companies, I thought I'd start by spending some time with mom and dad and seeing what was in that area. And if there was nothing there right away, then I would look beyond that. And within a month, I took off the military uniform on January 1st, 1986. So when you say roll back the tape, it was literally tape. and by the end of the month, I had 2 job opportunities. So I was an Army infantry officer, but my secondary specialty was logistics management. That's what they were interested in. So one opportunity was in the University of Michigan Hospital, and the other was across town in Ann Arbor at a very fast growing company called Domino's Pizza. And that's the offer I took. That will be 39 years ago in January of 2025. So that's been a terrific run for me. I went from Domino's to a commercial printing franchise called Allegra. And along the way, we acquired other companies, Signs Now, Signs by Tomorrow, InstiPrint, ZippyPrint in Canada. It was just a consolidating industry, and we were good consolidators.
Take us back to Domino's, though. What was the first role that you filled, and what were some of the milestones within Domino's before you got into the printing game?
So Domino's was growing at an incredible rate. You know, the PR guys like to spin facts and some catchy phrase so people remember it. And I think ours back then was we opened 2 brand new Domino's pizza stores every business day of the year. And one of the big problems with getting them open that quickly was the logistics and getting together everything you need to build out a store, the equipment, the uniforms, the everything. And they had a division called the Equipment and Supply Division, but it was really poorly run because being a loyal corporation, they were trying to staff it with people who maybe didn't rise all the way to the top in the pizza company. And guys with a pizza background, they could get you a pie in 30 minutes or less, but they could not get you an oven in 30 days or less. And so I walked into this division. It was kind of a mess. And we had the 3,000 stock keeping units of inventory. We could supply you as a Domino's Pizza franchisee. We could supply you with everything from ovens, walk-in coolers, rooftop HVAC units, ceramic tile for your floor, down to pencils and yo-yos and logoed golf balls, everything in between. We had 10 tractor trailers. Each trailer could carry 2 complete new store packages worth of equipment, and they were constantly crisscrossing the country. It was a very sophisticated operation once we straightened it out and made it run well. It was so bad when I first got there, Stan. You can't believe this. Once they get on that store opening track, they got to stick to it. They're hiring people, training people. They've launched advertising. The truck would come from my division and it would show up, and the warehouse guys, they'd overlook putting little things on the truck like the walk-in cooler or the 3-compartment sink. And you can't open without that stuff. And so when I first got there, to maintain the opening schedule, Flying Tigers was at my loading dock at least once a week for the first probably 10 or 12 months I was in the company. It was a mess, but we got it straightened out and we went on to great heights and we were really successful. Now, if you fast forward years later into my career, I'm at Allegra and we do a management buyout of Allegra, and the founder of Domino's Pizza, Tom Monahan, was a friend of my CEO at Allegra, and I'd worked for him. And he said that he liked us and wanted to see us win. So he volunteered to be our financing partner. And so we were operating partners and he was financing partner, and we did it all together. And we were in a board meeting one day and he was trying to make the simple point about how important it is to stick to your core competencies. And he said, for example, Domino's, we had this equipment and supply division. That thing never made money for us. Shouldn't have been in that business. And before I could catch myself, I blurted out, made money for you when I ran it. I regretted it the moment it passed my lips. And Tom, as nice as he is, just stopped dead. And he looked at me and he said, oh, I forgot that's where you started, Steve. What were those years? And I told him the years. And he said, yeah, those are the only years we made money. So I knew it was horrible before I got there. After I got promoted out of the division, went on to do other things, I didn't know that it went back to being unprofitable for years.
What followed for you next off after doing those logistics?
I spent the rest of my time at Domino's actually in research and development. They had some big research and development projects going on with food, and they were kind of running out of control. They had some brilliant scientists working on them, but they didn't seem to have an ounce of project management abilities. And I brought a lot of those with me from the military. So they just plugged me, literally gave me 1 day notice. Look, we need you in this other division. And I got these, I'm in my early 30s and I got these world-class baking specialists and they're reporting to me because I'm the only one that can make the trains run on time. By the way, that was very typical for Domino's, right? When I got there, I'm running a division of 55 people. I'm 28 years old. It was crazy, the responsibility they gave us at such young ages. But having walked right out of the infantry into that, for me, I didn't understand why people didn't get to work till 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd already been there for a couple hours, waiting to do stuff. So transition was pretty easy for me.
I guess. So what followed that then, Steve? You spent the rest of your career at Domino's doing the same job until you ultimately got pulled into the Allegra scenario.
That's right. And when I joined, boy, talk about messes. When I joined Allegra, it was a little over a year out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and it was just teetering. And they had cut everything back to the bone just to survive the bankruptcy, and had come out of the bankruptcy with new ownership who were just outside the company investors and never operated that business a day in their lives. It was just a deal for them to buy in bankruptcy. And I came into that, and I was one of the first guys they hired to start building it back. And so I went all across the United States and Canada teaching people how to sell, and had terrific success with that. And then they promoted me to director of sales and marketing, then to vice president, then to executive vice president, later chief operating officer. So at the end, I was chief operating officer of all of Allegra's brands: Science by Tomorrow, Signs Now, Allegra, American Speedy, Zippy Print in Canada, Quick Print, all these different franchises that we had scooped up because of the industry consolidation that was going on. So I was COO of all of them. I was president of the Signs Now brand for my last 6 years, I think, in the company before I retired from there. And it was a terrific ride, to go from being hired as an employee just to try and save this company to being part of the group that buys it as a management buyout, and had a good long run doing that. I think we had 12 years together in that ownership group. And then I sold my shares. All the partners senior to me had sold their shares and retired. So then eventually I did. Tom Monahan, I think, sold his within a couple months of me selling mine. And I was going to be happily retired, and was so for a whole 15 months. And then one day, out of the clear blue sky, my cell phone rang, and I almost didn't take the call because I didn't recognize the number. But it was somebody who was an old friend of mine, and I didn't even know that he had an investment in PuroClean. He was a minority investor in PuroClean, and they were looking for a new president. And he started the process of talking me out of retirement and moving from Detroit to South Florida. And I said no for a solid 2 months before they finally got me to accept their offer and come, because I wasn't out looking for it. I was pretty happy doing nothing at that point in my life. And so, but they got me to come back in to PuroClean. That would have been September of 2013. And my mission was supposed to be short and sweet. There were 4 shareholders who were in their 70s with no succession plan. And so what they asked me to do was pump up our company, get it sold for us, go back into retirement, probably take you 5 years. Well, it took me 2 years and 2 weeks to the day from when I started to when we closed on the deal to get the company sold. And PuroClean was in the worst shape of any franchise I'd ever come into in my life. It was really tough. I didn't go through a Chapter 11 like Allegra did, but it was just really in decline. And so I kind of felt like it was also the smallest brand I've ever been. As a matter of fact, even with all the growth that we've had in all my years at the helm now, it's still the smallest franchise I've ever been in my career. But, I felt like I owed it to the world of franchising that had been so incredibly good to me. And, the part of the enticement was, hey, we're going to move you back to Florida. Once we sell the company, you'll already be in Florida and you can go back to your retirement. So as I said, it took 2 years to get the company fixed and sold. And then the 2 gentlemen who bought it were restoration industry guys with no franchise experience. And they said, would you stay for 12 months for continuity? And I said, absolutely. In my 2 years here, I have fallen in love with these franchisees. They're wonderful people. And I would happily give you an extra year for continuity. Well, that was more than 9 years ago now. So I guess something must have worked out okay.
Steve, it occurs to me listening to the story that you were really an early adapter to what has become an industry standard anymore, with roll-ups and consolidations everywhere you turn right now. But you were at that many, many, many years before anybody even thought about it, weren't you?
Yeah, and I was deep involved in it too. And I loved it, because what I learned from Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's Pizza, is franchisees first every single day, right? You want to be a successful franchisor? First, make successful franchisees. You want to be a large successful franchisor? make a lot of successful franchisees. So I always call it playing the long game in franchising. But in that zone where the graphic arts industry was in the 90s and early 2000s, it was all about consolidation. And so it was like consolidate or sell your company and get out. And we chose to stay in. And there were 6 of us that were partners that were negotiating every one of these deals. But you can't speak with 6 voices in a deal. So our CEO would always be the voice of us. But then once we did the acquisition, then I was the face of operational integration. So I integrated brand after brand. And I became so confident about it that we'd acquire a brand and I'd do this road show and go out and meet all the new franchisees. I'd take the whole exec team out. It wasn't just me, but I coordinated it. And I would tell them with great confidence, going forward under our ownership, I promise you, you're going to get the best support for your royalty dollar you've ever had in your career. And they would. We would deliver on the promise, and we had happy franchisees, and we had a growing, thriving company. It was probably not how every company is built these days, but like you said, there's so much M&A going on in the space today. A little bit, all my growth at PuroClean has been organic. And so I a little bit missed the art of the deal. That was fun, putting those deals together and then showing how we could take that company into the next level.
Well, with a guy like Tim Courtney, I'm sure there's still a little bit of fun in FranDev to be had, even if it's a different game plan than it used to be back in the days of Allegra.
Yeah, Tim Courtney, Vice President of Franchise Development for PuroClean, he's really the best I've ever worked with in that area. He's the consummate professional. And Tim is a lot of fun, as you just said. And a lot of times people see that public face of Tim Courtney being a fun guy and hanging out and being available to mentor other people who are at an earlier stage in their career than he is. But I get to see the other side of Tim Courtney. He's the super analytical guy. That guy knows every metric in the business of franchise development. And he and I have a sit down once a quarter and we talk about it. And he constantly impresses me with his deep, deep knowledge of every corner of lead generation all the way through to onboarding new franchise owners and launching them for success.
I am not at all surprised to hear that. I'll tell you what we need to do, Steve. Why don't we take a quick break here? And on the other side of that break, let's come back and dive deeper into PuroClean and what goes on there today, what changes you've seen in the post-COVID world. And before we let you go today, we're also going to ask you to take a look behind the curtain and give us a look ahead for the next 1, 3, or even 5 years out in terms of what you see going on in the franchise business, a little bit about your work with VetFran, and of course, our mutual love affair with the IFA. We're talking today with Steve White, President and Chief Operating Officer of PuroClean. I'm Stan Friedman. This is Franchise Today. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Franchise Today will be right back. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by Profit Keeper, the #1 franchise analytics platform for franchisors and franchisees. Trusted by more than 150 brands and 50,000 franchisees, Profit Keeper connects KPI, benchmark, and royalty data from your locations, groups, and territories. With Profit Keeper, you see stats in real time, presented simply and graphically. This makes it easy to identify actionable information for franchisees to help them drive profitability and brand growth at the unit level. No more wrangling data and guessing what works and what doesn't. To learn more and to get started, visit profitkeeper.com/franchise today. And the conversation continues with Steve White, President and Chief Operating Officer at PuroClean, former chair of the IFA VetFran Committee, and IFA aficionado and board member for how many years, Steve?
Board member? Board member for about 5 years. I'm currently the chair of the IFA Foundation Board of Trustees.
So what do you tell people that are new in the audience that may not have found value yet in IFA as part of their equation? Just a fast commercial for IFA before we dive into the PuroClean world.
Well, IFA is one of the most giving communities you could ever be around. If you're looking for a mentor and haven't found one, you just haven't talked to people that are in franchising. Go to IFA events, talk to people. Don't be afraid to pull people aside and ask them questions. I don't think I've ever been denied. And I've been involved with this association for 25 years or more. And I think it's really good. It's high value. It's very effective at what it does. They make efficient use of our time. We're the ones that get real involved with the running of the association, but they are really solid, well-run events where you can get a lot of value. And then as you're around IFA a little bit, you will probably find some place where you'd like to plug in because they're working on something that you naturally have an affinity for. And like me, you get scooped up into it, right? For me, it was being an Army veteran, and I got involved with VetFran. So I'm an old soldier. The first thing they teach you as a young soldier, Stan, is volunteer for nothing. So we had a VetFran committee meeting in Washington, D.C., and I couldn't go because South Florida got hit by a hurricane and they canceled all the flights. So several days later, I get a call from one of my buddies on the VetFran committee, and he said, "Yes, sorry you couldn't get to the meeting last week. Since you weren't there, we elected you into the chairs." So I was second vice chair, first vice chair, and then chair of the VetFran committee. And when I was done with that, I thought I was kind of done with leadership because I've never been one of those guys that's out there self-promoting and trying to, I'm just here to serve, right? I mean, I get my recognition and my compensation from PuroClean. That's my focus. But I see IFA as a place where I can give back to this business format that's given me so much. So I volunteer for nothing. And when I was done being the chair of VetFran, so each of those terms, second vice chair, first vice chair, and chair, are 2 years. So it's a big commitment. And when I was done, I thought I was done. I was teasing Matt Haller, the CEO of IFA, that I'm really proud to be immediate past chair of VetFran. And he let me laugh for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then he came after me in a serious way to be the vice chair of the foundation, because that's where VetFran, and plus a whole lot of other really good stuff, exists. And in a way where I could provide some leadership to keep the foundation healthy, which in turn keeps initiatives like Ascension and diversity and VetFran and all those initiatives going. So I did that. And then, of course, it naturally morphed into becoming the chair. But at this next convention coming up, I'm done again. So I'll be immediate past chair. I'll still be on the foundation board. I'll still be on the IFA board, but I'll be immediate past chair of the foundation and have a little less responsibility going forward.
Just for now, though, because there's a handful of us that every year we show up at IFA and we count how many ribbons appear beneath our name badge. And every one of those ribbons is representing something we should have maybe said no to, but we didn't. And we time out on those commitments. And next year, here comes another ribbon. So I think there's just a bunch of us that have been around this long enough that don't know how to say no. While we may not, as you said, in the military, you're taught not to volunteer. I think there are those who are smart enough to know who to recruit. And while you may not have volunteered, you're also the kind of a guy with a heart so big you can't say no. And I think the world knows that about you, Steve.
Stan, when somebody says, "Wow, you have a lot of ribbons on your name tag," I say you should see that as a cry for help, because I just can't say no. I have to learn. And I've told various executives at IFA, and they say, "Which workshop are you going to today?" I said, "I'm looking for the workshop on how to say no to you guys, but I can't find it."
Well, Steve, let's move the ball forward before we lose the clock here and talk some about your role at PuroClean. And PuroClean has had to have had a busy year with all the hurricanes that we've seen, but you do more than storm damage, don't you?
Yeah, actually, storm damage is a pretty small percentage of what we do. We're set up to take care of the small losses that happen in local communities every day, right? That's what fits the franchise model. So you got, almost 500 franchisees across the US and Canada, and they mainly work in their local market because there's losses every day. Every day, water, which is all around us, think about it, water is escaping its confines and causing damage. People have kitchen fires that turn into bigger fires. They find mold in their home. All these things happen. Bad things happen to people every day where they work and where they live, and they often can't work or live there again until we come and clean it up. And so that's what we're in the business of. When a big weather event does come along, like the big hurricane year that we just had, we do our best to try and send help into the fray, but we must always first be taking care of our home markets. And then to the degree that we have additional resources that we can send into the storm to help out, we try and do that. But there's another part of the restoration industry called large loss, where their business model is built more around the big catastrophe. We're built more on the everyday catastrophe. But in PuroClean's case, the two guys, Mark Davis and Frank Torrey, who own PuroClean, also own a large loss firm called Signal Restoration based out of Detroit. And so so we're very unusual because we have two independent companies, one that does large loss and one that does local losses every day, but they're owned by the same two guys. And so they can have us plug and play together any way that they want. And it happens all the time, right? Because Signal is not in every community. Signal is only in a few places in America. But when a big disaster happens, they'll roll to it. It could take them a day or two to roll in there. In the meantime, there's a local PuroClean who's already on the job working and getting things started. And so we work really well together. It was I think it was a brilliant strategic move for these two guys to own both companies and have them be able to be so complementary. They're not competitive at all. The two companies are strictly complementary, but it's a great work. And it's this work with this great sense of importance, right? We're the emergency room for property damage. When something bad happens to your body, you take it to the emergency room, but you can't take your home or office to the ER. So we roll to you and we start taking care of stuff. The plumber fixes the broken pipe. We start cleaning up the big mess. The firefighters put out the fire. We start cleaning up the big mess. And that's what we do. We put life back in order for people. And it's really a noble work. And we've been talking a little bit about VetFran. We have our own initiative called PuroVet, P-U-R-O Vet. And we have a little mini website for it, purovet.com. And we have a lot of military veterans. Only 7 or 8% of the American population has ever served in the military, but 13%, almost 14% of PuroClean franchise owners are military veterans. And then we have a whole host of other first responders too, firemen, police, stuff like that, who get attracted to this work as well. So like I said, there's a great sense of importance to the work. For a military veteran, they find it very easy to shift gears from serving their country to serving their local community. And they're not shooting at anybody anymore, but they're still providing an essential service and leadership. And it's a really good situation for us. And PuroClean's seen tremendous growth. I've been at the helm of the brand for 11 years now. I have these two amazing owners of the company who are incredibly supportive. They're the wind in our sails every day. If you can imagine this happening in the franchise space today, they bought this company in September of 2015. And I was just about to start my first fall regional meeting of the year. So they came with me and they were bold. They said, we will not take a profit distribution for the first 2 years we own the company. We will put every dollar of profitability into more and better programs for you, the franchisees. And then they didn't go 2 years without taking a profit distribution. They went 5. And so they just kept reinvesting in the company. And it was like putting gas in our rocket engine. And we just took off. When I joined the company, we have a little more than 2 times as many franchise locations as when I joined the company, but our system-wide sales are 5 times what they were. So
impressive.
Thanks. And our average unit sales are about 4 times what they were when I joined the company. Our first order of business has always been and will always be to take care of the ones we already got, grow the franchisees we already got, make sure that they're being really profitable, because I live this franchise life because it changes other people's lives. The sales number does not change their life unless a significant amount of it makes its way to the bottom line as profit. That's what changes people's lives. So I'm interested in the profit, and I'm interested in their satisfaction, their happiness. We just finished doing our annual satisfaction survey. We do it every year. It's really, really important to us. So we've been blessed with tremendous growth at PuroClean. It's been a lot of fun. I think the staff was about 25 people when I came. Now we're north of 80, but we've had the growth. So we have growing, profitable, satisfied franchisees.
Well, I don't see how you go wrong with a winning formula like that. Steve, are there any things that you can point to that have changed dramatically in your business post-COVID that weren't visible before?
Not terribly. We were largely unaffected by COVID. We wore masks more often. We thought it was silly because in our business, we understand, because we do things like mold remediation every day, we understand things like the sizes of particles. And we knew that the size of the COVID particle was about 5 times smaller than the size of particles those masks everybody were wearing were designed to catch and filter out. And so as one of my franchisees who is an expert in mold said, if you think that mask is helping you with COVID, you're trying to catch dust with a chain link fence. It's blowing right through. But the law was the law, and so we wore them anyway. Even though we thought it was silly, we still complied and wore them. Aside from that, that. We probably don protective gear more often than we used to. We're a little more careful about that stuff, but our business has not really changed dramatically. Certainly not because of COVID or anything like that. What's really driving some change in our industry is the development of new software that manages what we do, because we are largely an insurance pay business. And so because these big giant insurance companies pay us a lot of money, they want to try and exert more control, and software is the vehicle to do that. So we've seen a lot of change in our industry in the software area principally.
We've been seeing some pretty dramatic changes since COVID as an industry or as a business model in private equity and its entry into our space in ways that we didn't contemplate. I mean, if you look back to 20 years ago when Rourke kind of introduced private equity, a whole bunch of more people have entered the space, but nobody behaves quite like Rourke does with buy and hold versus the 5-year flip. What's your take on private equity, where it came from, where it is, and where it's going?
I think it's interesting. I get they're there primarily to serve their investors, and they've got to do that, and they've got to be driven by those goals. I don't know that it's always the best thing for the franchisee at the end of the day, right? The franchisee likes that long-term stable leadership that establishes a culture that they get comfortable with and get to a point where they feel like they're really thriving in it. And I think the biggest challenge about private equity is the pace of change. When a company changes hands from one to the next, then they have a different philosophy. And, you contrast that with my company, where my one partner, Mark Davis, of the two partners that own the company, Mark Davis says, I'll never sell this company. I'll never sell it. I love it too much. I'll never sell it. I'll sell everything else I own before I ever sell PuroClean. And the man is 56 years old. He's got a long runway in this business. And so I think we have had for 9 years, that incredibly stable ownership group. And we've seen in our industry, almost every other franchise in property restoration is owned by private equity today. And we've seen all the changes that goes on in there. And, sometimes it's really, really good and spikes growth, and sometimes it's not. And you got to deal with those things. PuroClean's had me as president of the brand for 11 years. It's had Mark and Frank as owners of the brand for almost 9.5 years now. And I think the three of us have brought great continuity to it. And I think that's going to continue in the future. And for us, it's just, we're just trying to stack success on success each year and always trying to keep the franchisee at the front of it. And we're able to do that because we don't have any other investors, right? Mark and Frank own 100% of PuroClean, and they don't owe anybody else anything. And so there's a period in the year where insurance claims in our sector are a little soft for a quarter or something like that. They don't bat an eye. They've been in this business a long time. They know it's going to come and go, and they just stay the course, and we just keep plodding on ahead. And it's like when we were all young and we were starting to learn to invest for our futures, and we learned the principle of dollar cost averaging. We just kept investing in our 401ks every month on the knowledge that in the long run, everything's going to lead toward growth. Well, we have a lot of that mindset at PuroClean, and then it's all undergirded by our culture. We think culture is everything. I don't know how much culture changes when private equity ownership of a franchise changes. I just haven't been there to see it. So I really couldn't speak to it. But I know in my company, that culture that I grew up with initially at Domino's Pizza all the way to today, that has got franchisees at the first priority of everything we do. That's what drives us. And that's made all the difference for us, right? We're servant leaders first and foremost. And we lead these franchisees by serving them, and we serve these franchisees by leading them. And that's what we do. And we're also, our part of our culture is accountability, because we want to have credibility. We want our franchisees, when we tell them we're going to do something for them, we want them to have great confidence that it's going to be done. So we make promises all the time, and then we hold them up more. My advisory council just met a few weeks ago. We published an action log this last week of everything we decided, because I think the action log is a series of promises made to our franchisees. And then during the year, as we update that action log, franchisees see these guys keep their promises. They keep their promises. And then part 3 of our culture is active collaboration, which is just Z and Zora working hand in hand together. Everybody wants that. Everybody at least says that they want that. And I think most people really do want that. that. But my personal belief is to get a franchisee to really, truly be your partner, then first, they got to know that you're a servant leader who puts their welfare ahead of your own. And second, that you can be dependent on to do the things that you say you're going to do, that you're accountable. Then that's when they really commit to being an active collaboration partner with you. And that's when you go to the moon, when you got franchisee and franchisor working together. And in my business, we serve these giant insurance companies, right? And my team's got a part to do on the national stage. And then the franchisees have to do their part on the local stage. And then we have to meld those efforts together. And so when we're working together, we're more nimble than the other guys. We're faster to it than the other guys. When change, which inevitably comes in every business, when change comes, we're better suited to flexing with the change and adapting to the change, and very often faster than our competitors. And people think that there's some silver bullet. The silver bullet's the culture, and the culture is not easy. You got to be working on the culture every single day, but it's not easy. But we're committed. We do in big ways and small ways. We're all about maintaining that culture every day because we know the culture creates the environment for this terrific growth to occur in.
My good friend, and I'm certain yours as well, Mike Isaacson, implanted a message in me many years ago about how culture eats strategy for lunch.
That's right. We jokingly say we think it eats strategy for breakfast. And Mike's 100% right. Mike was a leader in this industry at the pinnacle of this industry for a lot of years. So he is both the voice of experience and the voice of great wisdom.
So you are 11 years into your 2-year tenure. Why don't we round out this conversation with your view of the next 1, 3, or even 5 years out? What do you see?
I see continued great growth for PuroClean, where we have an unbelievable franchise development team. And I think we all felt a little flatness, should I say, in franchise development this year. You know, the uncertainty of this election, the uncertainty of whether it was going to be a hard or soft landing for our economy. We had a lot of people indecisive about becoming a franchisee. And so we had a very decisive election, and our economy certainly had a very soft landing. And so we see people moving forward again on the franchise development faster than they were mid-year this year. And that's a good thing. And we've been picking up steam through the fall in our system-wide sales of our existing franchisees. October of 2024 was an all-time record month for PuroClean. And so we see that steam picking up. And what do I see going forward? I see 15 to 20% annual growth on the system-wide sales basis. I see adding 60 to 80 new franchisees per year. That's kind of the track we've been on. And now we're also, by the way, we're of an age, our brand's almost 20 years old. So now we're of an age where we have franchisees retiring in a little more significant number than ever before. And my personal belief is that my fiduciary responsibility to these franchisees doesn't end until the day that when they retire, the day that they sell the business and get a check, they realize the equity they built in this business called PuroClean. And so we are with them. We help them sell and successfully retire. And we have a vested interest in it because we want to know who the next owner of that business is going to be. And we want to be able to develop them so that they can take the business from where the old franchisee retired and take it on right on up to the next level. So we're doing a fair amount of those transactions as well. And we're just in it. And so I think that's what it looks like for us. I think we have continued growth in this software area. In so many industries today, software is a settled issue. It is not a settled issue in property restoration at this point in time. We're still trying to have a victor emerge as the preeminent software company in our industry. That battle goes on. And as long as that battle continues to go on, it represents change for all of us who do what we do at PuroClean. And so we adapt to it pretty well. But, it's fun to watch the franchisees get big and successful. The average franchisee now 4 times the size that they were when I came into the company. A lot of these people are making more money than they've ever made in their lives. And as you well know, Stan, part of the challenge at that point becomes to keep them aggressive in growing because they're living a good life now. And we don't want them to take their foot off the gas and slow down on the growth. We want them to enjoy their lives. But, we're focused on more helping the franchisee understand how to run a larger, more sophisticated business, right? To go from just being a leader of a location to a leader of leaders. And as we like to say, we're going to help you build the team, and then you let the team build your business.
Steve, how do people find you again?
You can find us at PuroClean.com. PuroClean.com. Military veterans can find us at PuroVet.com. We're pretty easy to find in the world. It's an incredibly rewarding business.
I'll tell you what I tell most of my guests, Steve. The audience remembers sometimes not everything that they heard, sometimes not much of what they heard, but they always remember everything about the way a guest made them feel. And I really feel like your steady hands rang loud and clear today, Steve. I appreciate you being here with us to pay a visit to Franchise Today, my friend.
Thank you, Stan. It was so good to just spend a little time with you today.
Steve White, President and Chief Operating Officer at PuroClean. Look forward to seeing you at the convention, my friend.
See you soon.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Next week, I'm joined by Nick Lopez, founder and steward, as he calls himself, at Lime Painting. Another interview you just don't want to miss. So until next Wednesday at noon Eastern, I'm Stan Friedman wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Franchise Today is a production of FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM tools to empower relationships with prospective and existing franchisees. Find them online at frmsolutions.com. Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another episode of Franchise Today.